You're listening to The Tide Pod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD. Well, hi, everybody. It's another edition of The Tide Pod, and today I'm joined by Wendy Brown, who is a social media advocate for chronic illness, and she has a platform as a digital creator called Auntie Spoonie that many of us, I think, go to for messages every day and things to help us deal with day-to-day life with chronic illness and disability. So it's great to have you join, Wendy.
Oh, thank you, Ty. It's good to be here.
Yeah, excited to visit finally after scheduling, a few weeks back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Um, but yeah, first off, I'd like just to have you share just a little bit about your journey with chronic illness and how you, have gotten to the point where you are and kind of what you're passionate about that you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been chronically ill my whole life, but figuring out that that's what this was, I think, has been the biggest part of the journey.
Mhm.
I know they knew I was having medical problems as young as like 2 years old, but I would go to doctor after doctor after doctor. No one ever knew what was wrong. Or like
Mhm.
it would seem like I caught every virus that came along, or I would, be really tired and I would want to be in my bed because I'd be in pain. And so I would be like, I feel like I've been hit by a bus today. Or I would sublux a joint, but I didn't know that's what that was happening. And I would just pop my knee back in all by myself as a little kid.
Mhm.
And it turns out now that I'm in my 30s, I'm getting diagnosed and I'm not just faking it. I'm not making it up. It's not just anxiety. It turns out that I'm immunocompromised and always have been. So I wasn't faking to get out of school or, to not go to church on Sunday. I was really sick. And it turns
Right.
out that I have, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and POTS. So I used to pass out all the time in high school. And they
Mhm.
always were like, oh, maybe she's faking. We don't know why she just wants out of school. You
Always
know,
those assumptions.
all those assumptions, right? And those are just from your peers, your loved ones, your family. That's not even
Mhm.
talking about the doctors who can't figure out what's going on, who are just like, oh, well, it's just your anxiety. We
Right.
don't need to worry about this right now. We're just going to focus on mental health or things like that. You would be amazed how much better your mental health gets when your physical health gets addressed properly.
True. They're so interwoven, I think.
Well, I mean, the mind body connection is huge for sure.
Hmm.
So to have that validation behind finally getting diagnosed and, having doctors starting to listen and believe, even if they don't understand the nuances of all of the
Right.
conditions, it's a huge difference. And so, and I've seen this. This happen to my friends. I've seen this happen to family members where they go into a doctor's office and they just get gaslit, or the people in their lives simply just don't believe them.
Right.
And I think
Right.
eventually that fired me up, right? So
Yeah.
about 5 months ago, I started the Chronically Humored platform and using the persona Auntie Spoonie um, to talk about it.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I'm homebound with my illnesses, so I'm just some 34-year-old woman sitting in an armchair talking to you all,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's me,
Yeah.
zooming around my house in my wheelchair. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Well, I
sure.
think so many, relate to that though. Did you find, when you first joined, did you start right away seeing people that shared, kind of some of your similar experiences with
Absolutely.
diagnosis? Yeah.
Absolutely. Shared diagnoses, shared experiences, people who are going through the same things. I think that's a big part of why I started my Because I'm Nosy series that I do.
Mhm.
And that a lot of people will come in and share their stories of just the different, whatever the topic is, whether it's how we grew up as kids, whether it's, your experiences being gaslit at the doctor. We had a post get over 1.6 million views just by asking, what's the dumbest thing a doctor's ever said to you?
Right. Wow. I mean, that's such a
Okay.
relatable thing too. Like the minute that I started realizing how common gaslighting was, and then like things like doctors just assuming that you have certain things, or maybe they prescribe something that's not even effective or it's completely wrong for what your diagnosis really is. It just seems like we've all dealt with that so much. And it's, finding a doctor that will come in and like have a conversation with you and be open to, to the fact that they're not the expert, maybe. I think it's rare. And when I find doctors like that, it's been so, you know, eye-opening. And yeah,
Breath of fresh air.
yeah, like you have an equal voice, like you're the expert of what you're feeling, and it's not just anxiety or something that's just written off, that way.
Exactly. Doctors who, validate and acknowledge and confirm with you they're invaluable. And
Mhm.
we make a lot of jokes about doctors on the online, like
Right, right.
and our frustrations, but I think it's good to acknowledge when you do have a good quality doctor that they need to know, because the burnout for the doctors is also so real.
True. Right.
They're overwhelmed, their own time restraints, their paperwork loads are going up. They have to just blow through patients to keep insurance happy. And I think we're all a little miserable in that system, and that's important to look at as well. Make
True.
sure that we're treating each other with mutual respect and kindness.
Right.
Or in those
Right.
office situations for
That's
sure.
such a good point. Yeah. And especially the doctors that got into it for the right reasons and that are trying to treat their patients fairly, like they're probably in extremely high demand and their load is probably heavier than in general, I would
Oh, I'm
think.
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there like an experience or, like a doctor as you were going through that, like the first one that you met that was empathetic and did visit with you? Like what was that like just for the first time meeting someone like that?
The first time I had a doctor who was really empathetic was probably my OBGYN that gave birth to all three of my sons.
Mhm.
His name is Dr. Goff, and he's located in the Oklahoma City area. He's a
Mhm.
phenomenal OBGYN, assuming he's still practicing. Um, he was not who I would expect to have been so affirming in my healthcare, because he was this 6'5" giant guy,
Mhm.
you know, coming in. You're just like, whoa, who are you? And
Mhm.
and I wasn't very nice. I was young. He told me I was having twins. I told him to shut up. He's like, no, baby one, baby two, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay,
If you say so.
if
Yeah.
you think so. But it turned out, because of him seeing what I was going through with my pregnancies, how hard those were on me. And we didn't know I had Ehlers-Danlos at the time. We didn't know a lot of this stuff. And so him being following my case so closely, he even put me in the hospital for like a month on bed rest just to keep a closer eye on things to make sure I was safe. And that was always his biggest thing. But I think another thing, after I had my final child, and I had been having conditions that a lot of doctors either don't believe is real in women or they don't take seriously. I had PMDD. And that is, along with several other gynecological issues that we discovered, because he took me seriously.
Mhm.
And so many other doctors never had. And it turned out that he was willing to do my hysterectomy at 27, because he took how serious everything going on with me was. That was a huge transforming point in my healthcare experience for sure.
So
Because
like
so
some
many women have
initiative
to
to,
fight to have that
yeah.
done. Yeah.
And like more I guess trying to address things that like early on, that
Mhm.
could be problems later. I think that initiative is like so important for doctors to have, I think.
Yeah. And so he was the first who really
Yeah.
showed that empathy, showed that knowledge, showed the willingness to investigate and figure out what is going on here and how
Mhm.
can we make it better.
Yeah. So going forward then after you worked with him, like did that change anything about like your maybe how you approach finding doctors or
I
maybe
think I think it makes it so that I know that that exists.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I know that exists, I can stand up for myself in ways where maybe at first the interaction's not going so well, but we can transform that interaction. So
Right.
can you always know?
True.
Can you always know? That's where you've got to learn. It's okay to fire your doctor. Just like
Hmm.
they can dismiss you as a patient, you can dismiss them as your doctor and get a second or third opinion. And sometimes you need to.
Right.
Sometimes you need to.
Right.
It's okay to do that.
That's a level of like self-advocacy too that I think is not always easy to realize, especially I
Yeah.
think back on, my experience as a kid growing up with muscular dystrophy and going to neurologists and hearing, things that were never helpful and just like degrading things like, well, you just need to go on a diet and lose weight. Well, it's like, well, you put me on steroids that promote weight gain and, those kind of
Exactly.
things. And so it's like, you quickly realize they're not the expert, know-it-all with everything. And, I think that's hard to accept too, because you want to go to one that, a doctor and find a solution. And that's, it's just not always the case. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's tricky. But as far as like, I guess firing your doctors or like finding second and third opinions, like what was that experience like for you? Did you have to go on long searches quite a bit or
Sometimes you do,
yeah.
sometimes you do. But people should be aware, even in the hospital, even if you're hospitalized, you can fire your doctor. You're not stuck with whoever's assigned to you on the unit. Like if that doctor is treating you and your family unfair and they're not giving you good health practices, you can always request a different doctor to treat you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a it's not easy. It can be definitely something that makes you very nervous.
Right.
You don't want that. Nobody wants those confrontations. But to just simply be like, hey, I feel like our goals here aren't aligned, and I'd like a provider who might work better with me and my needs and see more eye to eye with me. That would be a more ideal situation. And so because of that, I'm requesting a new doctor. And that's
Right.
like a general script of something you might say in that circumstance to achieve that if you're
Right.
in a face to face. There's other ways depending on the practice to get a different doctor. A lot of times you just go through insurance and assign yourself a new doctor,
Right.
and then just contact your practices and go from there. But
Yeah.
it's good to know. It's good to know that you're not stuck with somebody who doesn't get you.
And that, I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to be, extremely like conflicting or confrontational
No.
either. Like you're saying, you can approach it with just, it's not a great fit and, just feel like like we're not aligned, and I think that's okay. Like that's not something that we should be afraid of,
I
if
guess
the
think
care
about
is
if
not
you were
provided.
going to be fired from a job. Think about how you would want to be fired, and maybe like approach it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good,
If you don't
good
want to be
idea.
yelled and screamed at and told you're the worst thing ever, then maybe don't approach the doctor that way either,
Yeah.
because they're still a clinical expert, even if they aren't a match for you.
Definitely. Yeah. That's a really good thing to realize. And I wish I would have done it sooner, as a teen or something before, but yeah, better late than never. Um,
I didn't
but
learn until my early 20s that you could dismiss your doctor. So
yeah, yeah, I think that's, I definitely, I think as a kid, I had a support system that with my parents that allowed me to be like, well, I don't want to go to every appointment that they suggest because it's not going to help, and like quality of life, I think too, is something that for each individual, that's, they should have a say in that too.
absolutely, quality of life is so important.
Yeah. But like you're going into your diagnosis, you said, that now you're starting to get some like confirmed ones. So I guess what was it kind of an evolution of like maybe you had doctors realize, well, it could be this, or maybe we need to test for something else. Like what was
No,
that?
a lot of it was me, Ty.
Yeah, yeah,
I started doing research, and I
yep,
don't just mean like WebMD. Like I was
right,
doing
right.
deep dives into, research studies and talking to resources.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I would look on Google, Mayo Clinic and things like that, but I was looking at research studies. I was looking at
The full
textbooks.
scale, like Google Scholar, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I went scholar mode on it, and
yeah,
I mean I joined so many support groups, and I was hearing stories of things that people were experiencing that I was going through, and I said, wait a minute, if this is happening to all these people, what if that's what's happening to me? And then I would research into that, and
mhm,
then I would look and see, does any of this match up? And then I would take that research and I would bring it to my doctors, and I would present it to them, and I would say, this is what I've been learning about, are these tests that we can run. Because when we joke a lot about, oh, your lab, nothing wrong with the labs, nothing wrong with the labs.
right,
Okay, but maybe we're not running the right labs because we weren't.
yeah,
Now that we've done so much more additional testing, we have so much more additional answers. But it
right.
took me advocating for my own care and basically spending hours and hours, like hours of my time, doing
Basically
this.
a full-time job almost
I
by
joke I'm a
itself.
full-time patient
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
But you know what? That is so true too, though. I think so often I think people don't realize with a lot of chronic illnesses and things like you are battling something that's taking, you know, in itself a full-time, I mean, hours and hours a week, and then to be, expected to meet standards with, maybe employment or something else, like it's just difficult, I think, to convey that to others. But
Well, sure, if you're managing multiple doctor's appointments a week and
mm,
your phone is always ringing off the hook with insurance specialists, different people, your emails blowing up on my chart from between the
exactly.
doctors. I mean, you get us, I mean, it takes a lot of time. And then to add in that research, excuse me, to add in that research component that we do as well to
Right.
educate ourselves, not only on what is going on with us, but potential treatments and potential tests and things we should be looking to, and co-occurring disorders that go along with it. Um, it just
It's a lot. Yeah,
it's a
it's a
lot.
full-time job.
It's
Yeah.
a full
It reminds me, quite a lot, honestly, of grad school when I was going through, because you focus more and more on, like one very specialized area, and kind of understanding, every part of the field and what the background, knowledge is, and what the current state of the art, treatments or methods are. So speaking from that experience too, and on the patient side, it is a very, very I guess time constraining, thing to live
It
with.
can be, for
Yeah,
sure. And I'm
yeah,
hoping that the doctor receives that information that you're presenting, and that they're not trying to, that they don't think that you're saying you know more than they do,
right,
and that you're really just trying to work collaboratively with them. Because that's
right,
when you see the most success, I found, is when the doctor and you are on the same page, you're working together, you're a team. And
hmm,
it's not just deferring one to the other. It's not saying I know more than you know more than
right.
me. It's here's what I know, here's what you know, what can we figure out together?
Exactly. I mean, it is a collaborative effort, and then, at least from my experience, you need multiple types of, doctors. And then when you're trying to, basically be kind of the middle source of information, like they don't, I haven't seen a case where they communicate back and forth between themselves much either, and that's, I don't know if you've had that kind of experience too.
Some of them talk to each other, but a lot of them don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
on my team. I do find that. But
Yeah.
I think it depends on when it's relevant for them to communicate.
True.
But I think there's definitely times where the communication could be better between the team of doctors. Because you have
Yeah.
your primary care and then all the specialists, and you wish they would all communicate a little better, but we can't have a perfect world, I guess.
Right. Right. And then I've had experiences too, and I'm sure you've had where I guess the notes are so extensive on your online,
Yeah,
charts and records, and
who has time to read
very,
all that?
yeah, and rarely does anyone seem to have even a, general knowledge of the whole journey. It doesn't seem like they
Yeah.
even use that information as much, but
But I mean, I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the time
yeah,
constraints on the doctors.
true.
When are they going to have time to review? Like, I think about how long it takes me to read my own chart.
Right. Right. It
Now read the
it's
chart of, 100 other patients that you saw
yeah,
today. You'd never see a patient.
right.
That is an unfortunate, reality of our medical system here in the United
Hmm.
States.
Yeah, I agree, and then that reminded me too of things with like pharmaceuticals and medicines and side effects, and like interactions between different medicines, and it's like I remember I was in the hospital asking for, like, well, I need to see like the documentation on each medicine, like what the side effects and what the information is, and they're like, well, that's 40 pages for just one medicine,
I need it.
and it's
I'm going
like,
to read it.
yeah, like how, like I still have to find, as much as I can about it, and
I'm putting this in my body. Exactly. I want to show me the 40 pages.
exactly, yeah. As hard as that is to process, like let me see it. Yeah,
I
but
need to
that's
know. I need to
yeah, that
know. I
there's just
mean,
so much to research and learn, and like unanswered questions, obviously, about every part of the
what's going
what's
on?
going on. Yeah, yeah. But I'd like to go into a little bit more of your like advocacy, and how you started there, and like kind of what your, maybe there was some challenge or something that you learned kind of along the way that was kind of a light bulb moment of, like I want this to be the mission and this is the goal versus, I guess boundaries in a way a little bit, on
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. Boundaries are important, I think. Especially with as big as the platform's starting to get.
Mhm.
I'm at over 22,000 followers now, so it's getting a lot bigger
That's
than I ever expected it to grow to.
getting serious
Um,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's just on Threads, and
Mhm.
so, I mean, I run my private Facebook group on the side, and we have multiple different group chats that are always going for support for people.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I offloaded, maybe some of getting too many DMs or
True.
things like that. Is I put people, instead of people coming to me to be the sole resource, I'm giving them additional resources like the groups or my Substack where I write essays about different topics in more detail, or
Mhm.
we have the sharing group for everybody and then the chats. I think those are all very good tools that definitely help reinforce my personal boundaries. I have to be able to Um, yeah, I try to stay authentic in what I'm doing as well.
Right.
Um, so whether that's sharing personal anecdotes from things that are happening in my life so that it humanizes me a little bit to the people who follow, and that I'm not just a corporate page pumping out content.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, like there is a human running this page, and I think that is a huge element of what I do. I mean, that's part of the Auntie Spoonie. Like people are there because they want that warmth, they want that human touch, they want to
Mhm.
feel like someone who responds. But when it like now that it's getting bigger, I can't respond to every comment anymore. And I think that's one of my biggest heartbreaks is that
Oh yeah.
I used to love answering every comment individually that I got, but I can't. It's not possible anymore.
And it's not that you
And
don't want to at all. It's just the
exactly,
nature. Yeah. Yeah.
there's not time, there's not enough time in the day. And even if I had enough energy, because I still have to be mindful of my own personal spoons and my own
Right.
energy. And, some days that means not posting. Some days that means scheduling my posts instead of live posting and taking
Right.
that, you
Right.
know,
Right. I mean, and I think that's just part of being authentic and sharing your stories and things like that also means that, you do have to stop and
take
take a
care of you.
break. And yeah, yeah.
I can't preach that on my social media. Yeah, take care of you, guilt-free rest, do this. I may not be doing it myself.
Right.
And then it's
Right.
funny because I'm so tired. I need to do this, but what if I'm not posting? What if I'm not doing this? No, because one of the best things about their following is they're always like, we understand.
Right.
We like, so do you. And I was like, and I
That's
just appreciate that so much that
mhm.
people acknowledge that there is a human behind that
And that
account.
has to be so validating too. I think as,
Yeah.
someone in social media, when, your followers get that side of it and do understand where you're coming from, I think that's like, that's
It's
for sure why,
great.
yeah, it's like one of the biggest things that I love about it, just from starting out. And I mean, like even like I think I have 2,000 something followers at
Yeah.
this point or whatever, but it's like even that has its, limits. And I'm starting to realize quickly that, you just you can't be doing 24/7, work
Using
on
it,
it. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm on there a lot. I am because I do dedicate a lot of time to it.
Yeah.
But there's days where I have to step back, and I do. But it's also been such a huge help having this platform to me because I'm seeing I'm not alone.
Right.
And it's showing other people that they're not alone. And I think that's the biggest thing I could ever ask for is to bring together community and for people to see that we are a community. And what does it mean to be a community? It means that we support each other, we lift each other up, we're there.
Right.
We're not trolling each other in the comments, we're genuinely invested. I mean, I recognize so many of the screen names that comment in my comment section all the time. Like I'm
Hmm.
getting to know these people. And so you hear their stories, and I really do read as much of this as the stories as I can that come through in the
Hmm.
comments. Even if I don't reply directly, I'm still reading all of them.
Right.
So
Right. I love that side of it too, that it's, and I think a lot of people think that, oh, social media, it's not real. You can't form real communities, and that's the furthest thing from the truth with, with a lot of us, I think, that have chronic illness and disability. It feels like,
yeah,
you're finally
chronically online.
seen and heard. And, and for me, it has been like almost therapeutic, just finding people that understand, not even the same diagnosis, just like understanding of staying home, like feeling isolated, needing community,
Exactly.
and I think that's so much of what's good about, the platform and the way you're approaching it too, with like the almost like facilitating too, like even when you can't respond to everybody, you're like, well, I know these are good resources that they can go to, so that it seems like they would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Thankful we're all chronically online when we're
right.
chronically ill. So that's where
That's a
we
good
go.
point.
That's where we
Yeah.
go to hang out with our friends.
Yeah. As far as like content and everything, do you like what's the primary mission of things that you actually like when you write a post or when you share something, like is there kind of a pattern or certain routine with that, or
Do I have a structure to
yeah, yeah.
so no.
Not really. Yeah.
I think about it. I've thought about making it more regimented, but
Hmm.
I want it to stay authentic. And
Yeah.
authentic is me posting about what's on my mind at that moment.
What's going on day
And
to day? Yeah.
Yeah. And so do I batch content? Yes.
Mhm.
So say I'm having a good day, I'll come up with, I have like a document where I keep like post ideas and I'll
Yeah.
batch post ideas and then I'll, copy and paste and post them at different times. Like I'll scroll through
Mhm.
the list and I'll be like, okay, what's the energy going on in the community right now? What needs to be said? What fits best? And I'll pick from my batch content, or sometimes I'm just, freewheeling it, like, hey, this
Mhm.
is what's up, guys. If I have them that much energy, then
Yeah.
I'm talking about it in the moment, whether we're talking about political things that are affecting us in our community, whether
Mhm.
we're talking about just making jokes to take off the edge of
Yes.
we're all going through, or just making statements, or talking about the grief that we all go through, or talking about what it's like to just find community and what that means and how to build
Yeah.
family, to build our online family. So many people don't have that.
Yeah. I love that. Like it's a loose, like loosely structured format, but
It is
it's
loosely structured. There
yeah,
is
but you
some
use
structure
the
in it.
energy though, like what's going on, what people are saying, it's kind of the whole, it's almost community driven too, in a way, it seems like. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try to keep it as community driven as possible. It's not about me. It's
Right.
about us.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that, it is like the more that I can help or bring, like share voices, bring, stories to the table, I think I get the most of it from it then too. I think that's just, it's
Yeah,
nice to be able to see, other voices that maybe wouldn't have a platform or somewhere to share their story. So I think that's
exactly.
more
And I
and
think
more I feel that.
everyone just wants to be heard.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I do a lot of the, like, because I'm nosy, like I mentioned that series, I do that series
Yes.
so people can be heard.
Yeah. And so you're kind of splitting it off into like different segments. Like when you first got into it, were you thinking you would just sort of go with one platform and one mission or something? Or how did you kind of diversify into these different
Just
areas?
just gradually,
Hmm.
as I have the energy, my main focus is threads. But I do have a TikTok, I have an Instagram, I have
Hmm.
Substack and Medium. And so I've always been a big social media user.
Hmm.
I've just never used my voice in this way online before.
Hmm.
And just the way how fast everything's been going, just for it to be in 5 months to have built up to this is just it's a huge to me. It's enormous. And I just sometimes I sit there and I say, wow, is this even real?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, I've been a little advocator since I was a little kid,
Yeah.
for different, whatever my cause was. I've always had a cause. And
Yeah.
so it just kind of naturally evolved that, well, why wouldn't I turn what I live with every day into my cause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess how do you balance or manage all of the platforms too? Because like you
Sometimes I
said,
just want,
there's threads, Instagram, Facebook,
I don't.
Blue Sky. You can't
I
manage
do it
all
as
of
I
them all
have
the
the
time.
energy.
Yeah.
I focus on threads as the main.
Hmm.
And then if I have extra energy, then maybe like once or twice a day, maybe I'll post to Blue Sky, or sometimes it'll be a few days. If I have the energy, then I keep up with Instagram. If I
Hmm.
have the energy, I batch content for those
Yeah.
things too on my good
Okay.
days. I might build up a queue of graphics for Instagram posting throughout the week. So then I don't have to put as much energy into it later.
Yeah. I love how you approach that too, because when you do have the energy and the momentum, so to speak, like to be able to do batch content like that versus, then you're obviously there's days that you don't necessarily feel like doing as much, but I think that's also like an authentic thing, like trying to, use the
Yeah.
good energy when you have it.
Yeah, you gotta use
Yeah.
it out and got it without burning out. That's the key. You don't want to burn out.
See, burnout, that's a scary, I honestly think that's how I ended up, in the ICU with gallbladder issues years ago,
Yeah.
was like my job by itself was becoming just overbearing. And for me, like during COVID, I felt the pressure to like maybe match or even like exceed what I had done before because I was, home even more than I already had been. So, I think that burnout factor is like, it's bad and it has physical, like it manifests in physical
Physical
ways too.
repercussions for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, Ty.
Yeah. What was that? Sorry.
Absolutely,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that burnout factor is something I actively try to avoid. And you can get it with social media too, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, were there any I guess, websites or platforms that you, for whatever reason, decided to just like end or close down, or maybe have you pivoted, from one to another?
I think maybe my attention might switch platform to platform. Like I try to make a Substack post once a week.
Yeah.
I try to give myself, minimums for the other things. Like, okay, why don't we just limit ourselves to so much on this week and so much here? We don't need the growth to be as crazy as it is on other
Yeah.
platforms. We can be slower about it. And if something's not working, and then yeah, cut it off. And because your energy is so limited. And
Yeah. Well, and then, if it's for me too, if the platform is hard to use or hard to, to share a post on or something from another platform,
I just don't like it. I don't use it.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, what about the format of your content too? Like, so I guess Threads feels like it's quite a bit more text based.
Yeah, mostly.
Um, so like, have you found that one is better than the other? Or do you like have a mix of like text versus video or something?
I found for me personally, text is a lot easier on my energy levels to maintain because I
Mhm.
used to try to do more with TikTok and Reels in the past, but it would be very draining for me
Yeah.
and to keep up with all of it. And so I've stepped back from maybe as much video creation as I used to do in the past, and I mostly am focusing on the writing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the openness to kind of pivot too as you need to based on
Mhm.
whatever your situation is really good. I think starting out I tried to do a lot more text, and with my muscle weaknesses and stuff, I realized, well, I can quickly get exhausted and I'm not putting out what I want to. So now I'm like, well, would it be better to put this as a reel or a video, or should I keep it just short text? It's always this kind of
Yeah,
internal debate,
because it can be different person to person, like
Yeah.
what uses the most energy for them. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of doing what works best for you.
Right, exactly. So for your followers, is there an example or a story, that you might want to share about how someone came to you and was like, this changed something or really improved something? Like what?
Oh,
I'm sure you have several examples, probably.
I don't know. I've gotten some emails that have definitely touched my heart from people unexpectedly.
Yeah,
Saying they read something on my content and it made them go and talk to their doctor and get diagnosed with, autism or ADHD or even other illnesses that we talk about. But I definitely do a lot of talking about neurodivergency on my platform as well, not just chronic illness.
right,
And I've definitely gotten several emails from older, not older, I don't want to call women old. You aren't old.
right.
Women
We're
older
not
than
saying
me.
old.
We're saying old for diagnosis,
Right,
like
right.
late life diagnosis.
Yeah,
It's very real. But when you're say in your 50s or 60s and you're choosing to commit to go to your doctor and say, I think I have ADHD, that's huge.
yeah,
And so I think like that's enormous to me that people are asking questions about their kids, they're asking questions about themselves. And they say thank you. And
yeah,
like, that's humbling in a way.
yeah.
Just say, wow, something I made as a joke today changed someone's life.
Right. And I mean, when it leads to an improvement like that, it's just,
It
and
makes it worth it.
yeah, it does. It really does. And I think it's also like, again, that finding you're not alone, that someone
Mhm.
else is going through these things. Like
Exactly.
I didn't become a self advocate really until early 30s, and I mean, while sure I wish I would have sooner, but still it's like, well, when you do, it's a good thing. And, to question and to share experiences, I think it's really valuable, I think, for so many other people too.
And I think you
Yeah.
do a good job with that as well. So
Well, it's a learning curve for sure.
it
But
works. And
yeah,
we can't grow without learning and we can't, so that's how
yeah,
we change. That's how we grow is when we learn. And so,
yeah, I totally agree. Totally
yeah.
agree with you there. Yeah. I guess I'd like to know a little bit about, do you have future plans for things that, maybe that you're moving towards with your social media or even outside? Like, are there, kind of what's the next goal or something for you?
The next goal
Yeah,
to make it bigger than ever.
bigger and better.
Bigger and better.
Yeah,
No, it's always evolving. So I think it's getting to the size where we might start looking to partner with brands a little bit more.
I was going to ask you
Um,
about that.
yeah, maybe whether we're collaborating or doing things like that. Um, It's a thought. It's definitely
Mhm.
a thought right now. Because obviously you don't want to overwhelm everybody with a bunch of advertising,
True.
but to find a balance of where to bring that in, because monetizing my platform would definitely help me as a disabled individual.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Do you see that kind of being, I guess, almost a full-time job in itself at some point that's supporting you,
That
just
would be amazing if it became that
that level?
that level.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, the whole collaboration thing, I'm really always intrigued by, and when, finding people that want to collaborate and share part of your mission, I think is so great, really. Yeah. Have you, are there some that you've collaborated with already that have been just really good and helped maybe amplify, kind of the content and everything in a good way?
I think everything is still kind of in the talks right now. We haven't
Yeah.
really done a lot of collaborative thing yet.
Yeah.
That's what's in the works.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting though, to just, think about kind of what's possible. I think moving forward with collaborations and everything, it seems like there's a lot of good energy there, in the community too. Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah.
and it looks like there's a lot of opportunity going forward, and I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely. But Wendy, I hate to take too much of your time on the Sunday, but are there any topics that you would like to kind of dig into a little more or mention or talk about?
I think we
Anything
covered quite a
related
bit,
to?
right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Um, my gosh, I think what are we talking about? Brain fog.
Yeah, I
We
feel
kind of
you.
we joke about that a lot, but it's very real. It makes it hard to think sometimes. It's like
Yeah,
they're saying it's the sleepy day.
they exist, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
But no,
but
I,
it's
I
been my
sure
pleasure
appreciate it.
being here.
Yeah, that's been great to have you. And in the future, hopefully we can talk or maybe work on something else too. But as far as people following you and how to get in touch, do you think Threads is kind of still where you would like them to start with?
Start with Threads. I do have a website, chronicallyhumor.com, where it links to all of my platforms, so you're able to access any of my content from there. So if you want the easiest way to find me, just chronicallyhumor.com.
Great. That sounds good. Well, I'm definitely going to check it out a little bit more too. So, but I sure appreciate the time and yeah, looking forward to sharing with the audience and getting them some of your story and your journey so far too. So.
Thank you, Ty.